on by Amy Campbell and the Club Growth team. So over to you, Amy.
Throughout today, we've heard a lot of discussion on the conversation about clubs with low numbers, and I love that a lot of us are repeating the tools that exist. And we want to add another tool to your repertoire, your little arsenal of goodies when you go and speak to the club executives, because we want you as area directors to be as armed as possible so that when you get to your clubs, you look fantastic. So that is a personal goal of mine, and hopefully we can fulfill that throughout the year. I'm going to ask you to share just a little bit. And this is one of those moments that we've been talking a lot of great enthusiasm today, but I'm going to take just a second to, by show of hands, and I'm just moving my screen so hopefully I get more cameras. If you can put your camera on or at least use the yes, no within the chat, I would greatly appreciate it so I can see your faces and your hands raised. Who is in a club, a member of a club that has less than 12 people in it? I will admit I am one of them. Yeah, so we've got quite a few. Now, of the rest who do not have their hands up, who is an area director that has a club in their area with less than 12 people in it? Yeah, see a few more hands go up there. So as mentioned, Joe mentioned that we do have 65 clubs in the district as of yesterday that are in club coach territory. Now 11 of those have coaches, but what we want to do is Joe's guiding you through the conversation to have with the clubs to engage them on the potential of the idea that the program exists. But we do have a lot of clubs immediately right now that are in need because of their low numbers. And Tanya hit the nail on the head. There is a lot of burnout. So we want to discuss that and how we can helpfully evade that for a little while. We don't want clubs to stay in this area, but we do want them to be comfortable in this area instead of hitting the burnout. Now, in order to do that, one of the great things that I heard in the room was a plan. They need to do a plan with the club. If a club coach goes in there, they need to do a plan. I say it is true across the board for all of you. When you are going in to do your area director reports, you can make suggestions to a strategy session, because all goals get accomplished when you know how you're going to get there through a strategy, through ideas, through brainstorming. And the easiest, most simple way that you can talk about it is, where are they now? Where do we want to get to? How are they going to get there? And how do you know when they've arrived? Now, if we talk about just you guys and talk about us as the district here, where are we now? Well, we're here. We've had a strategy session on weekend. We've started our business and our deck meeting. You guys are all officially in your role. You're learning about your clubs as we speak. You're being armed with the tools to be prepared. So where do we want to get to? I would say that that's pretty clear, that that's been established, that every area distinguished, and then you guys went farther and said no member left behind. So that means all clubs in a distinguished status. So that's where we want to go. And how are we going to get there? Well, I'd say that we are in the middle of that process right now. That is an awesome place to be, because it's learning for you guys, it's learning for us, it's learning for the clubs, it's all kinds of great experiential learning that we are getting here. And so I'm going to hit on that a little bit more. And how do we know when we have arrived? Well, I would say that our basic goal, we will know at nearing the end of the year, when all these distinguished awards become evident on TI. But we also can gauge that based on the health of our clubs as we move along. Is our membership growing within all of our clubs? Are they meeting their goals of achieving new members and retaining their members? Because it's all incredibly important. But I'm going to back up and go back to, how are we going to get there? And if you remember last time, I challenged you guys in breakout rooms to talk about the Toastmasters meeting, the meeting specific, in one sentence. And a lot of you, I could see the look on your face when I brought up the fact very few people know how to do it, because everybody wants to get talking about the Toastmaster and then the timer and then the speaker. And it's just a lot to absorb for somebody who has no idea what any of this is. So you guys had a lot of great ideas and great information there. So we took it down and we do the combined results of that. Is that a Toastmasters meeting consists of 3 parts: prepared speeches to improve presentation and message delivery skills, impromptu speaking, table topics, to deliver one thought quickly and succinctly, and evaluations to improve active listening and feedback skills. I have an error in my English there. So if any of my English friends want to point that out to me, feel free. So we have this, so we want to get you started on that journey, or we got you started last time about speaking of Toastmasters succinctly and about the value that Toastmasters gives members and why it is a great place to be for that experiential learning and what you get out of it. Now, this is where, for me personally, it's really exciting. We're going to dive right down to that club that has 4 members. And we've talked about the meeting, and we've talked about the meeting agenda. And how do I put it? It's a horror story that I've witnessed it, and I have to admit, as a younger Toastmaster myself, I've even done it. That you stand up at the lectern as Toastmaster and you say, well, we have 4 people here and we're trying our best, and normally we'd have a joke here, but then, and if you have a member listening to this, one doesn't make your club sound very enticing because you're just admitting that you don't have a lot of members, but you can still host a great meeting even if you have 4 members. And we're going to arm you with that information right now. We have done a simplified meeting agenda. So obviously this is strictly the rules and not the full meeting agenda, but we want to encourage the clubs that when they only have 4 members, don't burn yourself out. Take the pressure off, keep it simple, remove the stress, and remember that this is always supposed to be fun. And I'm going to go back to a deck meeting that happened last year, and Scott Minnis did a presentation on coaching. And he didn't introduce this, but he highlighted and reiterated and repeated and reiterated again that the core elements to a Toastmasters meeting is a speaker, evaluation, and a couple of table topics. And that is all you need to really have an awesome meeting. And when you don't have a Toastmaster standing up there or other roles, they're saying, normally we would do this, and then we would do this, and we do this, it takes the stress out of it because you're just doing the basic roles. So we want to talk about the key roles: the Toastmaster, speakers, table topics, general evaluator, evaluators, timer, grammarian. And you can tell that we've done a list of how many members across the top, and then a check mark as to what roles can be done effectively, enjoyably, and still have a great meeting. So if you have 4, you're going to simply start with a Toastmaster, 1 speaker, 1 evaluator, and a timer to make sure you stay on time, because time is important. But from there, we're going to keep building it up so that if you have a club that is in the lower numbers territory, I can guarantee you they've probably already expressed exasperation, frustration, burnout. And I actually want to hear right now how many people have heard that already from their clubs. Danielle, yeah, Gabrielle, Shirley, Kevin, yeah. So we've got people that are the clubs that are in this position. So we give you permission to go back to the core basics, and as they increase their membership, increase the roles. And I feel like I'm a broken record right now, so I do apologize, but it eliminates the stress of, we don't have somebody doing this. The poor VP Ed is probably pulling their hair out that they don't have an opening thought, they don't have a joke. It's not always necessary. So we want to go back to what is important. The trick also is when you introduce this and bring this idea into the clubs with lower numbers, is that we're not giving them permission to stay there in that lower number. We're giving them permission to host a great meeting so that when new guests come in, they are completely enthralled with what is going on, and they don't see the unfortunate side of having a low member club. They still see a great meeting. That's one tool that we want to give you, but we want to reiterate tools that exist within the within the Toastmasters portfolio. They are there that often I hear have been forgotten. So we'll start with the first one, the moments of truth. This is part of the Successful Club series, and the Moments of Truth outlines how to create a positive first impression of a club and recognize and deal with situations critical to club success. To be honest, it is that moment of self-reflection. And It works when the club is willing to be honest with itself. It's not a form of judgment. It's a form of honesty to recognize where they are so that they can then build the steps to improve to the larger membership that they so desire. A club should want every new and prospective member's initial interaction within a club to be a positive one. Tanya mentioned it, Joe mentioned it, Fran mentioned it, I will mention it, and we will talk about it in the next meeting, and we'll talk about it in the next meeting after that, is that the first impression is imperative, because that's what a member sees. That's the 10 seconds that they decide whether they will come or go. If we go through the moments of truth, it evaluates based on 6 items. The first impression, the membership orientation, and Fran went through that. The fellowship, variety, and communication. Is everybody getting along? By removing those roles that aren't necessary when you only have a small group, I can guarantee you that that group will bond together better and have a more fun time. The program planning and meeting organization, membership strength, and achievement recognition. So as Tanya said, recognition is amazing, and it is a powerful way of boosting club morale. The process of the moments of truth is club members evaluate their impressions and rate the club. Ask the question, how would our guest rate this factor? A club member has to be brutally honest, as I mentioned. It will only work if they are honest with themselves. And if you conduct the moments of truth early in the club year, you can also do it again at the end of the club year and use the results to evaluate the action plan developed from the first time you deliver the moments of truth. Again, you want to review the Toastmasters value and the club mission statement. We have often mentioned the club's niche, and Izza is huge on promoting the club's niche. So we do have clubs that are either corporate clubs, that is their niche, they all belong to the same corporation. You have Coach's Corner, that is their niche, they're all coaches in their professional lives. You have community clubs, that is their niche, they were brought together based on the community in which they live in. So empower the clubs to use that to their advantage. Identify those unique aspects that they bring to the table that would appeal to their audience. And then write a value statement that doesn't override the club mission, but augments the club mission. It's incredibly powerful when people bond together, and you keep hearing us say the district mission, because that reminds us what we are driving to and what our goals are. The club mission is the same, but they can augment it to their own little niche. As area directors, when you go in to visit your clubs, why not deliver the moments of truth with them? You don't necessarily have to put them on the spot to answer the questions, because they might want to do that in privacy and sort of, feel that they're doing it in their own little bubble. But empower them with the fact that the presentation exists to do that. Tell them why it's important. Tell them how they can use this to build an action plan and to build a strategy to get their club back up in membership or to retain members. It's good for all clubs along the journey. And then we have other resources. So Fran touched on 2 of these, and I'm going to throw another one in here. There's the Better Speaker series, the Successful Club series, and the Leadership Excellence series. And we've got the links there. As an example, the Successful Club series includes the modules such as Moments of Truth that we just spoke about, finding new members for your club, evaluate to motivate, closing the sale, creating the best club climate, meeting roles and responsibilities, mentoring, keeping the commitment, going beyond a club, how to be a distinguished club, and the Toastmasters education program. Now, that was all just kind of rushed out there. But the Moments of Truth, the Better Speaker series, the Successful Club series, and the Leadership series, I'm going to go back to the slide that talks about the speaker. If we have 4 members there and all 4 of those members are just burnt out and have not one speech that they want to give again, go to the educationals. The educationals still provide an opportunity for an individual to put a unique spin on a provided script. But the script is also designed to give everyone a reminder of the tips and tricks that we learn here in Toastmasters. They are a great foundational piece. Remind your clubs that they exist and that they are powerful to the members when guests see them as well. Now, we don't want it to be delivering educational after educational after educational after educational. Again, I will go back to what Scott Minnis told us that day was, Deliver a speech, and if you've delivered it once, deliver it again, because the feedback will be better. You will deliver it better, and keep repeating speeches so that when you have a guest there, they are seeing a valuable meeting. There is no harm in receiving feedback in a speech that you've delivered that you've already improved based on previous feedback. We can all improve, and it's a challenge to the club members to give feedback on a speech they have heard before, because they need to give feedback based on what they're hearing in the moment, not what they remember what they heard. So it's a great learning exercise for everybody all involved. So again, I do empower you to use the educationals in the event that the clubs are low in member and there are no prepared speeches or no pocket speeches or no speeches available to be delivered. Have these as backups, but again, remember they're great educationals. And we are now at the point where I am happy to answer any questions. I also want to pose a question to you guys, that we have many club tools as resources, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and go to, so at tnd61.com, you will see in the top right, there is resources in English and in French. If you go down, there are club tools that are there. So if you click on there, we will upload the simplified meeting agenda into that spot so that you guys can use it and pull it and have it readily available for you. But there are plenty of resources that exist. Given that you guys are in the clubs and you have already heard information, my question to you, and it might be that you have an answer right now, it might be that you want to think about it, but what club tools do you need to complement what is here? What we are providing you? What do you hear your club's members saying or your club officers saying that they need to do better? Or feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, Amy, it's Joe.
Hello.
So I found last year as area director that a lot of clubs tend to forget that these tools are there, and then once reminded that they're there and that they start using them, all of a sudden a lot of their enthusiasm started to come back, and they was like, oh right, I forgot about that tool, and where can I find that? So not just telling them, it's important to not just remind them that those tools are there, but send them the link as well so that they actually can look at it and begin to implement it. So that was one of the really big takeaways for me.
I love that comment. When I talk about, you know, the whole share information, it's part of it is go that extra mile, give them the next step. Don't just, yes, exactly what you're saying, Joe. When you guys go into your clubs, don't just tell them that something exists. Show them where, because then they will use it. So yeah, that's an awesome comment. Paul.
The Leadership Excellence and the Better Speaker Series and the Successful Club Series, they're all fabulous presentations. For example, at my French club, I gave doing an introduction as my project 2 in Pathways. And then I did it again. And find those opportunities to do those projects and get credit for other projects in Pathways, because there is no direct correlation now. So find those opportunities and take advantage of that.
I'm going to ask you to go further on that. Can you give an example of a presentation you did that applied super well to a specific project in Pathways?
Yeah, for example, I did creating an introduction. I did that as project number 2.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Using presentation software, we could do another one. Using visual aids, connect with your audience. There are all these projects that, so it's not, the projects have certain objectives, but there's nothing saying you can't use these presentations as the content.
That is true. I like the creativity behind that, to be honest. I do. Awesome.
I have a question from the chat.
Yes.
From Patricia. How have you overcome resistance when helping a club?
So I might go farther and ask, what is the resistance? Is the resistance because they like their small bubble? Is the resistance because there's conflict and they don't feel they can get on the same page? So I'm going to ask Patricia, what would the resistance be?
The resistance is during the summer. One of the resistances that I encounter in some of the clubs that I deal with is it's summertime, and so why should I actually commit to a Toastmasters meeting? You know, golf is so important these days, so that's one of the resistances. The other resistance that I have experienced as well is, well, you know what? You're more experienced than all the others, so you go ahead and do it. And, you know, you talked about burnout, so therefore, you know, people are picking up some slack from other people. So that is a little bit of a resistance there. So if you have any clues or any insights to overcome that, that will be great.
So if we're talking burnout specifically, then I would then drive them to the, you know, tell them that they don't have to do every role until they have more members, because they want to make the meeting enjoyable. So I'm going to do that. The other strategy that we used, and I'll forgive me for putting on my former hat as division director when we were talking out in the Valley. So Fran, I'm going to talk about a conversation we had. Pembroke was not looking initially at holding meetings in the summer. They were tired, they were burnt out. We made the suggestion for them to pair up with another club for the summer. There's a French club, Le Marquis, and I can't remember who they pair up with, but they take turns hosting the meeting so that every other meeting is one club or the other. So they're hosting a joint club meeting. They're not combining the clubs. They're just hosting a joint meeting, opening it up for both clubs to participate. So that can often relieve some of the pressure. Now it's interesting because off the top of my head, if the specific member or a member is just determined they're going to golf for the summer, you can use the argument, the investment in their own professional career. They've built up momentum by participating in the program, and we all know if you don't keep speaking, you lose that. And my experience when I did the conference and I wasn't speaking for almost a year, shamefully, I was pretty horrendous when I got back to the club level and started speaking again. So you want to keep that momentum in their own personal investment, and I would use that ploy to play to their development.
Would they be open to doing demonstration presentations on golf?
Good idea.
Bring the golf into the meeting and teach us how to do it.
Using visual aids.
Yes,
Yeah.
Good idea, Greg.
Take the meeting to the golf course. That's what I say.
I have a question, Amy.
yes.
There's a club that I visited in the division and it's really struggling. So the first time I went to visit, they had like 3 people. And that was great because with me as the guest, so 4 people, and we had an okay meeting. And I told them to keep meeting. So because they don't, at one point, one of the idea was that they would team up with another club in the area so that the attendance number would be higher. So my advice was that just keep meeting, 4 members, you can have a great meeting with a simplified agenda. Mm-hmm. But then the next time around when I went back to give a speech and there was only 1 member. And at the 30-minute mark, another member showed up, and for the rest of the meeting, it was just like 2 members and myself. So I'm just wondering whether it might be better for them to team up with the other club in the area so that, you have more people in the meeting. And it's like, I think the 2 members that attended initially, just the president, it was pretty demoralizing. And if they keep having meetings like that with just like 1 or 2 members, I mean, it's just not sustainable. So I'm just wondering whether I need to kind of revise my advice and just say like, go and join in with the other club that, bring up the number of people in the meeting.
So I'll go 2 avenues on that one. And I would say that the option is still belonging to the club, but they need to have an honest moment with themselves. And I feel I'm being really bold in saying this, is that if they go and they're permitted to join another club temporarily to have joint meetings, they have to commit to those meetings and commit to the other club as well to be fair to the other club.
Yeah.
They also, if they choose that route, need to commit all of their PR, and Izza would be so proud I'm saying this, they have to commit all of their PR resources to state that that is where they are and can be found there. If they themselves want to grow their clubs, it'll be difficult for a member to attend that club and say, well, now we're going to come back and go. So you might want the joint meeting back and forth in venues when you're online or, in person, or time and location. Both clubs need to commit to their PR to change that effectively. If they choose, and I will again be bold to say, even if two people, if another individual has committed a Toastmaster, whether they have a coach or just a Toastmaster with a very large heart to commit to being there, to do one speech and an evaluation. Give the speech again, do table topics for a couple minutes, do an extended table topics, make the questions really crazy, but do it and commit to it. And when you have their commitment, and that might come, like I said, an honest moment with those two individuals trying to keep the club alive, is remind them why they're there. Remind them why they wanted Toastmasters. And in order to do that, to have those reasons, they need to keep committed to it. And there is a whole district, I'm just looking at all these people here that I'm willing to bet locally, you could reach out to any one of these area directors and say, hey, can I get your commitment for 2 to be here this week, 2 to be here next week? That could also help as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think commitment is really important because, I mean, one possible suggestion would be to bring in speakers, so then you would have the speaker. But that's what I was volunteering to do, to go in and actually prepare my speech. But then I went in and you have only one person there, for the first 30 minutes. And so, yeah, it made it difficult to even suggest, well, why don't you develop a roster of speaker by bringing speakers in from the speaker share list, for example. So there needs to be commitment by the members to at least, have at least 2 or 3 people be there at each meeting for these strategies to work.
Completely. So I apologize, Kim, and I need to cut you off because I do have the red card. Huge thank you. You all know how to get a hold of me and the team as well here. So if you have any questions, any comments, any other feedback, the thought hits you a week later and you want to let me know, please do. We do love the information. We love the conversations. So cgd@tmd61.com.